Welcome back everyone to the channel. Happy Easter or your equivalent. Today we're playing Hearts of Iron 4 in Abyssinia. We're going to be bringing glory back to the monarchy and to the Abyssinian people. But not on this map or universe. I got your ass. No, it's Equestria at war again. They just released the Cats and Dogs update this week, which includes new trees for Abyssinia and the Dogs of Bronze Hill. Abyssinia is something I'd wanted to see for a while because of the Wingbardian attempt to conquer it in most games. Wingbardi, of course, being the Italy stand-in and Abyssinia being the Ethiopian stand-in means the two are destined to fight, just not this time. Wingbardi fucking exploded into a civil war that took 8 years to finish. I don't understand why it took so long. Anyways, a little background on Abyssinia. It's a land of cats, sentient cats. House cats still exist, but there are also sentient cats, so you can have a pet cat for your friend cat and feed both of them catnip, or as the mod calls it, catnip, which is apparently a regulated drug in EAW's Abyssinia, and something the melancholic emperor chews on to cope with losing to the Storm King. What's a Storm King? Yetis. They conquered most of Zebrica using their airships, and while in the show they get defeated by love and magic, in EAW they met modern fighter aircraft and fucking collapsed in on themselves. But not before raiding the entire Abyssinian treasury and leaving the nation penniless, bordering on a famine, with no legal recourse to take action without the Emperor's approval. An Emperor who currently is too sad and high on catnip to even eat dinner. The nation's people and nobles teeter on the edge of revolt, looking for a competent replacement. Did I also mention there's slavery? There is slavery. This is Ethiopia. I should mention they also had slavery in the time period this is all based on. So yeah, that's also an issue, but it's not slavery of other Abyssinians. Abyssinians are only legally permitted to own other races like ponies and horses. Yeah, they're different. One's taller, fuck it. Anything else you can think of as well, like dragons? These things look so goddamn dopey. Speaking of ancient institutions, we can talk a little bit about the Abyssinian monarchy. Just like with the House of Solomon in the real world, the Clawinid dynasty is one of the largest ruling dynasties to ever exist. So I say longest, only briefly interrupted by the Catwe dynasty, which is going to be important in a moment. So when I was playing this, I didn't actually know this. I'm just finding this out now. Abyssinia is a real place in My Little Pony, and apparently I picked one of the few canon to the original show paths to play. I hate myself. Katrina Tabby is a member of the Catwe dynasty here. Now, the actual wiki page makes absolutely no mention of this, but I'm not about to become a My Little Pony lore aficionado, so I could care fucking less. But I do want to ask, who the fuck drew her? Why? Why did you give it an ass? Why does it have curves? Why? Add this character to the list of I know what you get off to artist characters. Moving on from that, Katrina of House Catwe has a devilish plan, because beneath her mansion there is a giant industrial machine that she uses hundreds of slaves to run. It produces a potion made out of witchweed, which is highly addictive. But it's great, because you get to combine Jefferson Davis with Walter White and play Breaking Bad in the bowels of a 1,000-year-old manor. What exactly is the importance of the witchweed potion? It makes you strong, but like specifically the Abyssinians, really strong, like stupid strong. Apparently Katrina would throw back witchweed potions like a 20-year veteran NYPD detective throws back fists and whiskey.
Wake up, Lieutenant!
But instead of falling over and being hospitalized, she becomes 50 feet tall and can shoot fire. Oh, but there are still withdrawals. Witchweed is basically, we took crack, gave you a dose of schizophrenia, and allowed you to weaponize your hallucinations. I don't make the rules here, that's just what the shit does. She wants to make an industrial production of this potion to supply the army with, which, okay, alright, fair enough. It's Pervitin, but the drugs are on drugs. Katrina goes ahead and starts convening the nobles behind the poor, sad emperor's back. Meanwhile, the poor, sad emperor has forgotten to go eat dinner. Katrina essentially promises action, and the nobles figure they're going to be given privileges, but Katrina has absolutely no intention of sharing any power whatsoever. She's trying to modernize Abyssinia. Like, she's doing the equivalent of spreading super opium to the masses, sure, but she's also creating a welfare state, and universal guaranteed health care, and state-provided free drugs, and free college Why the fuck do I still live in America? Discounting all that, the nobles force the emperor to abdicate, which he does in favor of his wife, who's also his first cousin, which the nobles bullied him about. But the nobles crowned Katrina of House Catwe anyways, because fuck the House of Clawinid. We hate the House of Clawinid. Total Clawinid death. Kill Clawinid. Behead Clawinid. Roundhouse kick a Clawinid into the concrete. Slam duck a Clawinid into the trash. Moving on. The poor sad emperor becomes a Sayori reference and fucking hangs himself in his bedroom, leaving his wife cousin alone to lead the Clawinid resistance, which is honestly really weak compared to the upcoming slave. You deal with it with a single decision. That's the Clawinid resistance. Anyway, I did mention we had slavery. Did I mention Mandalusia at all? No? Fuck! I hate saying these names. Mandalusia is a region split between Mergypt, kill me, and Abyssinia, which is a region primarily inhabited by horses. So they understandably do not fuck with the Abyssinian kingdom, and they revolt. And I probably could have prevented it, but there isn't a downside. They just break free, you kill them, you get a load of political power and an event afterwards, and it affects absolutely nothing beyond Koltoba. But yeah, the slaves are revolting. They're becoming a mass movement. They're forming a pan-Abyssinian communist resistance front, and they have decided their best bet was to revolt in a single state right by the capital, where they promptly then died. It's not even worth time-lapsing. They just died. Kablooey. Ashes. Cinders. With the slaves crushed, the nobles being forced to beg the central government for help led to Katrina consolidating power. With Katrina now having total control over the government, she begins implementing all those reforms I was talking about earlier, while also expanding the army, publicly announcing that she is producing witchweed, and then proceeding to chug a vial and jump off a building into a crowd of tens of thousands of onlookers, who then run away in terror because she becomes taller than the building. Because fuck it, now the nation knows what she's up to. It's not a kingdom anymore, can I speak? Can I say, it's a witchdom. And we are producing thousands of vials of witchweed a week, which we're going to use to absolutely obliterate our neighbors. And by absolutely obliterate, I mean eviscerated. Absolute. Holy shit, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. They have twice my numbers. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy shit. Holy fuck. No, but I'm completely serious. Look at this template. This is the template that I use to do everything that you're about to see. Modernization in the arid lands of Abyssinia is hard. Finding efficient electricity with little industry is also hard. Hydroelectric dams help bridge the gap, but there are only a few waterways worth such an investment. Both of the major rivers which run south into Equestria right into donkey territory. By damming them, we provide ourselves with high-efficiency electricity, lowering costs for our civilians, but threatening the water supply for millions of southern donkeys. Their diplomats file complaints which are dismissed rudely, and an embargo is placed upon Abyssinia. It becomes clear to the Catwe Queen that Abyssinia will forever be threatened by the outside races, so much more numerous than they themselves are. The developing Abyssinian economy could utilize more slaves and more resources in its employ. Securing the frontier and vanquishing old rivals must be the focus in the coming years. With the power of the witchweed potions and an elite fighting force of Abyssinian super soldiers, we will slay the ancients of Equestria, our old rivals in Egypt, and continue south to Yemen. If the opportunity is not taken now, we will never again have such an opportunity. If we were to miss this opportunity, our peninsula would be our slow and painful grave, as encroaching equines threaten to wipe out the mere 7 million of our race, most of which are tightly packed in and around the capital of Panthera. Personally leading the armies, Queen Katrina of House Catwe will see the ultimate victory over 25 million new subjects, all equines, who will serve the war machine for centuries to come. Despite being outnumbered in both men and industry, it was simple to take over Equestria when we had such a wonderful thing as the witchweed. After funding a revolt in Ovengoland, Egypt was cut off from the free city of Klugetown, a small hive of criminals and smugglers. Crushing Klugetown was easy enough, though there was nothing we could do for Ovengoland. Waiting for them to finish up, we prepared our forces to invade Egypt. With Asterian industry, we were able to double the size of our army, but Egypt's was still twice again our size. However, this did not matter whatsoever. On the Ovengoland front, our forces did incredibly well, and even where we were vastly outnumbered in the north, we began to make a push regardless. One of our generals would perish while pushing up the main river that fed Egypt. His death was one of few. We took very few casualties in this war. It is surprising we would lose a commander. That being said, we will kill 30 men for every one that we lose in this war. His death will not be in vain. In fact, it will be more than avenged. Last and also least, the Sultanate of Yemen would be our last target to fall. This would consolidate a massive part of western Zebrica under our control. Hundreds of thousands of equines lay dead, while merely 30,000 cats in total did. Needless to say, these wars were net positive for Abyssinia. Though we now had to garrison well over 20 million in population, a rather large number, nearly the entirety of Kyria, it was well worth it for the economic and resource benefits. I had not mentioned it up to now, but the Queen had a small, non-Abyssinian friend, a dragon named Rep. Rep was an innocent little fellow just following around his old friend. He wished that things could return to how they used to be between them. Constantly he tried to get into the Queen's psyche, to bring things back on track, to get her away from all this power-hungry nonsense, but she kept pushing him away. Finally, after so many had been enslaved, he had to give her an ultimatum. Either shut down the machine or lose him forever. Her best and maybe only true friend in the world. After thinking about it long and hard, she had a rough choice to make. She could restore the kingdom with its expanded borders and create a Pax Abyssinia, a nation unlikely to be threatened or fall for a long time, albeit without the witchweed and with a population ratio of 5-to-1 slaves. Or she can retain the witchweed machine, using the wonder drug to crush the far more populous Arabia, keeping the equines in northwest Arabia forever enchained to the Abyssinian overlords, correcting a centuries-old injustice since Abyssinia's subjugation to settle Arabia. She decides to give revenge a chance. The Arabians do not believe that the Abyssinians can hold together like they are, but with the witchweed again supplied to the military, the initial Arabian attack incurs 2,000 dead for the cats and 57,000 dead for the Arabians, a ratio that, frankly, scared the shit out of the Arabians. Rep has moved home. He's in the Dragonlands. The Queen is now alone, surrounded only by generals and advisors far too afraid to feel any warmth. At this rate, Arabia will be conquered, but is she really going to be happy with the result? It was a great moment of national triumph for the Abyssinians, undoing an injustice done to them centuries earlier, taking the fight all the way to trot gears. Even though the settled Arabian regime had fallen to communists, it was still sweet. Having seized the old imperial capital, everyone cheered, except for the Queen. She was due to give a speech in trot gears, but she realized something. Nationalism is no substitute for friendship. Though this was a great day of national triumph, and she could not deny that, she was in no condition to give a speech. She realized in that moment she had no friends, only those loyal to her out of fear. This was no way to live. She would consume enough witchweed that she could warp the very perception of time, turning back the clock just a year earlier. She knew that no matter what, the Arabians were likely going to come for her. A communist state right on the border of one that has enslaved 20 million of its brethren, but drugs were not the way to do it. She was no longer the Grand Witch of Abyssinia. A great ball was in order. The witchweed machine was broken, and together alongside Rep, a celebration for the future of the restored kingdom was in order. Jubilant nobles stood along the table, and Queen Katrina stood healthier than ever. Rep had spent the last 2 weeks helping her through the withdrawals. She was free of the drug at last, some of her morality restored, without the vanity that comes with drug addiction. Long live the Queen was the chant of the night that inaugurated the festivities. But for her, she knew she had great responsibilities in her hands. To ensure a future for the Abyssinian race, technological progress needed to accelerate. She had already made the beginnings of a missile and a nuclear program. She was pumping funds into the latest aviation technology. It would be a long and arduous decade for Abyssinia, and the loss of the witchweed machine did not mean Abyssinia was safe. Modernizing the infantry became the life's work of the Queen, accelerating the armed forces from a well-armed band of addicts to an incredibly well-armed band of disciplined soldiers. Her welfare and healthcare reforms aided greatly in treating the mass withdrawals that occurred within the army over the next few months. But once the initial malaise was gone, Abyssinian military reform would truly begin. Mechanizing the infantry was the dream of the Catwe Queen. While her magical firearms were among the world's most powerful, the bipedal nature of the Abyssinians had not been fully embraced. Far more Abyssinians could theoretically fit inside of the troop carriers that the four-legged griffins and equestrians had made, and plane cockpits could be more easily tailored to their bodies, without having to make adjustments to account for the odd body shapes of equines. By 1021, Abyssinia was an industrial powerhouse, albeit one still reliant on slaves. The population of the cat soared. Increased education and care for the slave population led many equines to not even bother with revolting. They lived lives similar to the average Abyssinian worker, with set guidelines and retirement in their later years. Some could optionally choose to serve in the Abyssinian armed forces for early retirement and even citizenship, though only second-class citizenship. Not everything in Abyssinia was green grass and cupcakes, but it stood with a higher economic output than any other single Zebrakin nation. Made in Abyssinia would ironically become a common moniker in Wingbardi, whose markets depended on the cheap goods we produced. One of the world's first jet fighters, the Rep-2, would take to the skies with a blistering array of armaments, and the fully mechanized force of the Abyssinian kingdom was poised again to end the Arabian threat once and for all. With a nuclear weapons stockpile 100 bombs strong, a vast industrial and technological advantage, and the will to secure their future. The Queen still worried about the death toll. In the last war, her infantry tore across as demigods, the Arabians taking 2 million dead while the cats barely lost 50,000. She worried privately that the death toll would soar far beyond that number, but her army surprised her. Facing the Arabians once again only 7 years in the future, the mechanized hordes ate the first Arabian attack, and then unleashed themselves into the desert. The Arabian army fell back further into its own territory, and faster than before, deeper and deeper into the land of the Reds, of their former oppressors. By the time the killing stopped and the war was over, 2.5 million Arabians had been killed, and only 34,000 Abyssinians had been killed. Looking at the casualty report was, for that ever-brief second, a relief nearly a decade in waiting. That she had made the right choice. That Abyssinia through progress alone could conquer without the need for the arcane and the supernatural. She would visit the ruins of the old machine beneath her manor one more time, laughing at herself for having ever let herself fall under the influence of the witchweed, before locking it and throwing away the key. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Sorry, once again, I got it out late. You know what? It was hard to put this one together, and my sleep schedule just was not up to par this week. I streamed for the first time ever this week, though, and I intend to put together an edited down version of that VOD on the channel here soon, not as a weekly content, but just as an extra to throw in at some point during the coming weeks. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it doesn't flop nearly as bad as the last ones, but hey, if it does, oh well, right? We had fun. Oh, that's stupid. Slave cavalry. Slave cavalry. That's hilarious. Yeah, we'll just ride them into battle. That's a great idea.